With a few days to prepare for the Cell games, Gohan and Videl had decided to spend a bit of time with the Son family. Future Gohan felt like something of an outsider here, however. This was his family, yes, but it also kinda wasn't. It wasn't like they were making him feel unwelcome, his parents were trying to make him feel at home, but he knew that he wouldn't be staying long. Once Cell was defeated, he, Videl, and Trunks were heading back to their time, and it'd be back to Goku being dead and him being unsure how to speak to his mother. He hadn't been home in years. She didn't even know if he was alive. It wasn't fair that he put it through that. He'd been afraid of the androids deciding to use her to get to him, so he had to act aloof, as if he didn't care about his mother. But that was all it was, an act. He seemed down, and this didn't go unnoticed by present-day Chi-Chi, who asked him what was wrong. So he'd explain to her how things were in the future. I wasn't there. She's all alone. She doesn't know if I'm alive or not. She'll never forgive me for putting her through that. It sounds like you had a good reason, Chi-Chi would begin. She wanted to imagine how she would feel about the situation, but it was a little difficult. I think she'll understand. You didn't do it because you wanted to, but because you felt you needed to. Or at least I'd understand. Of course, she was talking about herself anyway, just in the future. Time travel hurt her brain. This somewhat helped Gohan. If anyone would know how she'd act, it would be her. I think she'll be more mad that you haven't introduced her to her potential daughter-in-law. That caught Gohan a little off guard. He and Videl had agreed not to tell anyone just yet. Did Videl? No, it's obvious. I can tell how you feel about each other. Do you think Dad knows? I doubt it. I love your father, but he's hardly got a head for romance. Gohan and Videl would spend 2 days with the Son family before heading to Capsule Corp, where Trunks was staying. When they got there, they would meet Android 16, now fully operational thanks to the repairs from Bulma. He was sitting in the garden, watching the birds. Gohan, Videl, and Trunks were all cautious around him. They had bad experiences with androids after all. The animals, however, were fairly comfortable around him, comfortable enough to approach him and even rest on his shoulder, like a mechanical Disney princess. They understood that 16 wasn't a threat to them, so maybe the time travelers were being paranoid. I understand you may be nervous around me, 16 spoke up. He'd already noticed them, though they hadn't actually said anything yet, and that you may have conflicted feelings concerning 17 and 18. But I ask you not to hold their actions in your time against them here. They are not the monsters they become in your future. It was hard for them to admit it, but 16 wasn't exactly wrong. The 17 and 18 of this time hadn't hurt anyone. 18 had even tried to protect Krillin. She probably could have escaped Cell if she'd let Krillin die. But no, she chose to save him. They couldn't ignore that. We won't, and if at all possible, we'll try to get them back from Cell. Videl had kinda spoke for them, but Gohan and Trunks shared similar sentiments. They would spend the next few days either hanging around Capsule Corp or at the Son family home. Eventually, the day would come and they would have to head off for the Cell games. Future Gohan was relatively confident. Cell could probably beat them individually, true, but between himself, his past self, Goku, Trunks, and Vegeta, he was sure they could exhaust Cell. The first snag in proceedings would be the arrival of one Hercule, who Videl clearly recognized. Videl hadn't actually told Gohan too much about her dad, only that he was eccentric and he was a martial artist, so he didn't actually know that this was her father. Hercule would try to fight Cell for a short bit, but just as the android went to strike Hercule, Dad! Videl rushed in, pulling Hercule out the way. Hey, I had him exactly where I wanted him. Hold on, you called me Dad. Why's that? Hercule would look at her for a moment. Her hair was different, and she was much older, but her eyes, they looked just like... Videl? Ow! I'm from the future. I came here in a time machine. Hercule was taken off guard, of course, but he'd recognize his little girl anywhere. What am I like in the future? Have I gone grey? Videl was silent for a moment, seemingly worrying Hercule. Have I gone bald? Sorry to interrupt, but we're in the middle of a tournament here, and that little stunt has just gotten you and Hercule disqualified, Videl. With that out of the way, the real fight could begin. Goku was who he was here for anyway. The fight between Goku and Cell goes as it does in the original, the only people who can follow it properly being Trunks and the two Gohans. And while they appear fairly even, future Gohan was worried Cell wasn't giving it his all. He couldn't be sure. He thought the future androids were fighting with all they had, and they were apparently only fighting at half their full power. Who's to say Cell wasn't doing the same? Eventually, Goku would give up, catching everyone off guard, volunteering Gohan, though the two weren't sure which one he meant. Which one? Cell looked between the pair. No matter. I'll take both at once. In future Gohan's mind, that essentially confirmed Cell wasn't going all out yet. He was about as strong as his father, and the present version of him was even stronger. And Cell was this confident he could take them both at once. As for present Gohan, he had an idea of why Goku had chosen him, his rage boosts. Future Gohan had those as well, of course, but he hadn't been able to tap into them for years. The last time he did was when he became a Super Saiyan for the first time. Goku would toss Cell a Senzu Bean, much to the shock of everyone. Future Gohan would rush forward trying to stop him from eating it, but wasn't quick enough. So now the two of them had to take on a fully refreshed Cell. Gohan sort of understood what Goku was going for. He wanted Cell to push present Gohan into snapping, but he felt the two of them could have beaten Cell without that if Goku hadn't healed him. But it was too late for that now, so they just had to do their best. Future Gohan would strike first, hitting Cell across the face, and while it hurt, he could tell he hadn't done any major damage. He would score a few more solid hits, even knocking Cell to the ground, but as the android starts to take the fight more seriously, the two of them realized they wouldn't win like this. Eventually, present Gohan would let it slip that he knew why Goku had picked him, which definitely caught the Bugman's attention.
And you, can you do that as well?
I don't know, not since I was a kid anyway.
Well then, I suppose I won't have much use for you.
Cell would power up to 100%, punching Future Gohan in the stomach before grabbing him by the face and slamming him into the ground. No point keeping him around if he was going to be outdone by this younger version. Trunks and Videl would both rush to check on Gohan. He was alive, but he'd be out of the fight for now. That just showed how easily he could have beaten Goku if he wanted to. Trunks would grab a Senzu Bean for Gohan, and though he recovered, this served to remind Cell of the problem they posed, so he would fire a death beam, tearing through the bag as well as Krillin's hand. This seemed to get a rise out of present Gohan, who would slam his fist into Cell's cheek, and that actually hurt him.
Oh, I see. You don't care if someone beats the crap out of you, but if I lay a finger on your friend, you completely lose it.
Cell would create the Cell Juniors, ordering them to attack the rest of them, but not kill anybody yet. The fight with the Cell Juniors goes as it does in the original, although they do a little better since they have extra help. Future Gohan and Trunks can pretty much take one each, though the rest of them struggle. Videl manages to send one of them to sleep with the Sleepy Boy technique, but it was quickly woken up by one of its brothers. Ultimately, despite Gohan and Trunks being more or less equal to the Cell Juniors, they came unstuck when they attempted to help the others. Android 16, a little later than usual, tried to grab Cell and self-destruct, but he didn't even get that far as one of the Cell Juniors intercepted him, kicking his head from his shoulders. His head would land not far from Gohan. This enraged Gohan, but it still wasn't enough for Cell, so he'd ordered the Cell Juniors to kill everybody. 16 tells Gohan to fight for the people he loves before being killed by Cell, finally tipping Gohan over the edge. Gohan would ascend to the level of Super Saiyan 2, and he proceeded to dispatch every last one of the Cell Juniors. Everyone was in awe of his power, especially Future Gohan. It was hard not to be, and it made it clear to him that he'd lost something. He didn't know how, and he didn't know when, but whatever potentially happened as a kid, he'd lost it, and seeing him like this made it obvious. He just hoped it wasn't gone forever. The fight goes as it does in the original. Gohan hits Cell in the stomach, causing him to spit up 18, and then Cell attempts to blow himself up. Goku manages to save the day, but only by sacrificing himself. Nobody has time to process this, however, as Cell would return, firing a death beam through Trunks' chest. Videl and Gohan rush to check on Trunks, but he was already dead. This causes Vegeta to fly into a rage, attacking Cell, but of course it doesn't work and Gohan has to save him. As always, it comes down to a beam clash between Gohan and Cell, with it initially looking as if the latter had the advantage. Gohan could only use one arm. He supposed he knew how future him felt now. Goku would encourage him from the other world, and Gohan began to match Cell, but this was all he could do. They were at a stalemate. Future Gohan, Videl, Krillin, Yamcha, and Tien Shinhan would all assist Gohan, which seemed to tip the scale in his favor. It's not really needed, since Future Gohan is here and he's stronger than Vegeta, but Vegeta would still fire a blast at Cell, distracting him enough for Gohan to finish the job, blasting the Bugman into oblivion. At the lookout, they'd revive Trunks, but Goku informed everyone he wished to stay dead, though he'd visit every once in a while. As for the future trio, they were going to leave tomorrow, but Videl asked to stay longer. Why? We need to get back. Trunks seemed a little surprised by her answer. Well, a thought occurred. We don't have Senzu Beans in our time anymore, right? Gohan told me it's because only Korin knows how to grow them, so I was thinking of asking him to teach me. Then I can take some beans to the future and grow them there. That's actually a really good idea. Well, I guess it's a time machine, it doesn't matter when we leave. Alright then, we'll head back after Videl has learned how to grow Senzu Beans. It hadn't even occurred to Gohan or Trunks, but that would be an incredibly useful skill to have in the future. Right, that seemed like a good place to stop. Is growing Senzu Beans a learnable skill? If Videl does figure it out, how will it change things in the future? Next time we'll mostly just be wrapping up loose ends, the future androids, future Cell, that sort of thing. Leave a comment and let me know what you think, or maybe consider subscribing if you liked it, but no pressure. Alright, see you then, have a good day.